So we're replacing fuel filters in this 2006 or 2005 F250. It's a 6-liter diesel. It's got 250,000 miles on it. The reason why it has 250,000 miles on it is because I use it and I've maintained it, so it still runs good. You're going to have to get a fuel filter kit. Essentially, it comes with both filters. There's one here and one in the fuel rail. It's a canister style filter, meaning that the filter doesn't have the housing. These filters should be changed fairly regularly, about every 10,000 miles. The filter comes with a new O-ring inside of there. You're going to slide it down on there. Making sure it didn't come with a new one for the cap. And then you start this. It has spring pressure pushing back against you because that's how it seals itself. The filter presses against that O-ring. The spring makes sure that it has constant pressure on it so that when it expands and contracts, it's not sitting there with varying pressure on the housing and the filter. While we're here, there's a coolant filter. And the coolant filter is right here by Sinister Diesel. It's not a factory item. I added this because there's an oil cooler on heavy duty trucks, and the oil cooler has coolant going through one side of it and engine oil going through the other side of it. There's that filter there. I'm going to put this here. I hope you can see it. I'm going to grab a filter wrench. This comes off. But John, there's a new filter on the back of the truck. These two shutoff valves right here stop the flow of coolant. So I have turned them to the off position, which this lever indicates. It indicates the position of the valve. So the valve is, the port is to the side, meaning that the port is closed for coolant to flow through. You don't want to lay tools on top of a battery. That was a bad idea.
Fuel might look like Kool-Aid.
The red coolant is extended life coolant for diesel trucks, and it has some detergent in it and some things that it kind of builds a film on the hard parts, and that film keeps cavitation from happening. So whenever pressure changes, say a piece of, say a cylinder wall, you have compression. So your piston comes up, it compresses. All that pressure is pressing out on the cylinder wall. The outside of that metal expands, and it gives places for air bubbles to go actually inside the metal. And then whenever the piston goes down on the power stroke, the metal contracts again.
You need a mechanic?
No, I got two. Thank you. The metal contracts again, and that it'll actually chip off pieces of metal. And the orifices in the oil cooler are so small that little bitty pieces of metal being chipped off can actually plug those orifices. So that's the purpose of the filter, is the filter traps any kind of anything, whether it be leftover casting material, sand in the block where they cast these blocks, or little pieces of metal, or anything that could be in the coolant. It's going to trap that and keep your oil cooler from stopping up, the orifices in that oil cooler from stopping up. That being said, we just snug these back up. I'll document it in the notes on this truck, and that when it was changed, how many miles, how many engine hours, and that's just basically for my own reference. So whenever I'm doing service items, I don't double work myself, and I can go back and review those notes and be, oh yeah, 30,000 miles ago we did coolant filter, or 50,000 miles ago we did a coolant filter. We should probably do that again. It's time. We're going to move on to the fuel filter on the fuel filter on the chassis rail, so the frame rail of the truck. And grab that box and that oil ring over there. All this while our differential cover cleaned it up, and the differential is sitting there dripping, so it's getting close. Whenever it gets done dripping, we'll be able to put the cover back on, let the RTV seal and form that gasket and harden up. I'm sorry for bumping around. Let that form, and then we can refill it with oil once that RTV is dry. There is our rail filter. It's a fuel filter coming from the tank, and it's a nasty job. It has gravity working against you. It's just in a bad place. There is a replacement for this. It mounts to the rail here, and it has vertical filters in it, a more traditional style filter system, but it's expensive. And I was just gonna let this one quit working before I go spending money on that. Here's a bigger one. That's it. These sockets, if you're wondering, I used to work on Mercedes engines for like a year, Mercedes diesel engines, and they're Matco sockets, but they were made, they started out making them for the Mercedes fuel system and filters, just service items. You're not really supposed to, you know, torque things, you know, like you wouldn't normally use a 3/8 ratchet to torque a 40mm socket, or a nut that would accept the 40mm socket. You're going to want a fine tooth ratchet here. You can see I'm just barely getting a little bit at a time. John, can you get us that oil drape pan from back there and gently bring it up here? I did have to put a transmission in this truck last year, 220,000 miles. And most every time I drove a company vehicle for years, and most every time that this thing left the house, it was hooked to an 8,000 pound boat. Since then, we've gotten a little bigger boat, it's 14,000 pounds. And I still pull that boat with this truck, but only whenever it needs service or need to pull it out of the water for something. Most of the time it lives at the marina. We run charters off of that boat in Alabama, Gulf Coast, Gulf of Mexico, near shore stuff. So state water charters, permitted for 6 people, 6 paying guests. The captain's license is for 6 paying guests as well, but got that 100-ton certificate. So, just waiting to upgrade. If you don't like diesel fuel dripping down your armpit, I recommend doing that yourself. It usually happens. One second, buddy. But there's already some, what appears to be a little bit of water contamination trapped in the filter, making its way down. See what I mean? Yep, it's a mess. Oh man, look at all that dirt. Look at all the dirt. So I started feeling a little bit of a low power situation. And our 18-wheeler the other day had water in the fuel, and we get fuel from the same spot most of the time. And most of these fuel stations get fuel from the same refinery. So this fuel is just draining and dripping on me. I've cleaned the cap out. I'm about to put a new filter in. Hey, look at there. There's the other O-ring I was looking for in the wrong filter.
Need help?
Yeah, but I need your hands to stay clean more than I need help. There we go. Brand new O-ring. It wasn't on the dirt. Brand new filter. The opening goes in first. And we gotta try not to get it dirty while we're in the process of putting it up there. You gotta feel it snap into place. Just make sure it's in there. And then do our best not to cross thread this because you can't see it. Because if you get to where you can see it, you're gonna have diesel fuel dripping in your face. John, can you get that can of brake cleaner right there? It's gonna be the one with the lid still on it, okay? Once you change these fuel filters, you're going to have to cycle the key on and off several times. What it's going to do is it's going to give the fuel pump a chance to suck the fuel out of the tank and pump it up through the fuel system, through the cylinder heads. Freaking legs coming off. There's a shoulder here that meets on this cap that meets the shoulder on the fuel filter housing, and I'm just trying to get those to pull up tight to one another so we don't have an air leak or a fuel leak. Because if you have an air leak on the suction side of a fuel system, it will not run right. It'll be low power, it'll skip, it'll miss. I think we're there. A little, I'm not moving it much every time. Because there's your rubber that pump is mounted to rubber isolators. If it wasn't, the metal lines and stuff would break over years of vibration. Socket kind of got off. Hey Joe, where's that brake clamp?
Right here.
This is doing two things. We don't want to drip diesel fuel on the roads and stuff because diesel fuel breaks down asphalt. And I just don't want it in my asphalt driveway. We try to keep the mess to a minimum. Sometimes that's difficult. Here, bud. Yeah, we're ready to go to the rear end. We're back at our rear differential. What I have done is cleaned it up. I hope it's level. I'm trying to get the camera low. We're back at our rear differential. What I've done is I've let it drip and cleaned it up best I could. I wiped down the mating surface. I cleaned this up with a buffing tool. And we're ready for our, give me the cap. We're ready for our RTV. RTV stands for room temperature vulcanizing rubber. Put a bead down. And a little note, you definitely want to go inside of the bolt holes, because if you go around the outside of the bolt holes, oil can actually go through the bolt hole and leak out behind the head of the bolt. Yeah, it looks like I'm gobbing it on here, because I am. I'm going to take my finger and kind of smooth it out. that is the drag of the RTV, like the it's grabbing against my finger and it's grabbing against the housing. This would be awesome if I had some black gloves or some nitrile gloves, but I appear to be out of them. You can let these things drip for hours, and it's just oil stuck up in these tubes. The ring gear comes around, picks oil up, throws it up on top, and it actually runs down the tubes into the hubs. These are what they call a full floating axle, which means the axle wheel bearings out at the end. Each end has a hub, and that is actually submerged in oil, making it a wet bearing instead of a dry bearing, like a half-ton pickup truck would have a dry bearing. I'm going to use 2 bolts to help me hold. John, wipe that oil. Grab that paper towel and wipe that oil. Our tag, remember our tag? Yeah, we're gonna make sure it goes back on. These trucks are expensive to maintain, and whenever people buy these trucks, they need to be aware of that. I see contractors and people buying these trucks and doing nothing but driving from job site to job site looking like they're something that they're not, because they're driving around in a 3/4 ton truck. They're trying to look the look. If you're not going to use these trucks for what they're made for, all you're doing is running the price up for the people that need them when you buy them and you don't need them. This has a setting on it, and I can actually turn it down. It's a little aggressive. Did I miss any, John? Yeah, did I get them all? Go around just to make sure.
Now you got the tag.
So again, this is room temperature vulcanizing rubber. So RTV, room temperature vulcanizing, and it's a rubber sealant. So it needs time to adhere. It needs time to vulcanize and become a solid piece that is bonded the differential cover to the differential housing. So we're gonna let it sit probably an hour, and we're going to, it'll seal up, and then we'll pump oil in it. We don't want to pump oil in it now because we want to give it time to dry and adhere and seal. There is a little bit left in those tubes, but we can't really do anything about that. You don't get it all when you change the oil, when you drain the oil out, and that is the only way to change it, is to drain it out. You get the most of it and you do the best job that you can do, but you never really get all of it. I hope that wasn't in y'all's way. Today I got a little project here. A windshield washer fluid reservoir has a pump. The pump sprays the windshield with fluid so that your wipers can clean your windshield, you know, like every car ever. The pump has seemed to quit working. Now, I'm missing my cap here, don't worry about that. You'll have that. The pump is way down in there. Way down in there. So I'm gonna replace it. I went to O'Reilly's and got me one. So I'm replacing this windshield washer motor on this 2005 F250, and there is the motor that pushes fluid up to the windshield wipers. It's right there, and that motor just turns on and pushes water up to the windshield washer, you know, soap water mix up to the windshield sprayers. I'm gonna get a little screwdriver, see if I can pry it out there and do it without taking the battery and everything else out. I got a new pump. That's what we're looking for. It's just a little pump that goes in the tank and then sprays, pushes fluid out towards the screwdriver. Pop that pump out. There's the plug for it. You go on and plug it in while it's out here. And then I'm going to push this back into the grommet that goes into the tank. It kind of seals it off. There it goes. And then put the hose back on it. I didn't even have to drain it all the way out. I kind of feel like I cheated a little bit, other than getting wet. Now these windshield wiper washers hadn't worked since I bought the truck. I bought it in 2015. Well, I didn't bring the keys with me. I'll go get them. Went and got some keys. Man, look at that. It works. I went 8 years without windshield washer working over a $20 part in 30 minutes worth of time. I mean, I kind of feel dumb and at the same time happy because I accomplished something that I wanted to work. And the other day when we were changing the oil in the differential, for some reason the GoPro didn't film me filling the differential. It's super simple. You can either use quarts, but I have a 5-gallon bucket with a full of gear oil. It kept in a cabinet, and it has a hand pump on it with a hose, and I run that hose over to the fill port, and that's the fill port right there. Takes a 3/8 ratchet, no socket, nothing else on there, just a 3/8 ratchet. It's pipe plug thread. You loosen it up, you pump the oil in there until you can see where it ran out. You just pump it in until it fills up. When it runs out of that plug, differential's full. And I don't see any leaks from that job, and that was a few days ago. Today's Thursday. I think we did that on Sunday. So 5 days, no leaks. I'm gonna call it good.